And we are back with another episode of the Fight Stars podcast. Another special. I say this every time I start the show. It's always a special guest. But this one is really special. It's the first trainer I've actually interviewed for the podcast. And he's the trainer of the year. Everybody knows him in the game. The casuals might not. But that's why he's here, because we're going to talk so much about everything that he has done for the sport. And it's an honor. Legendary trainer Bob Santos. How are you today?
Hey, great. It's great to be with you guys here, man.
Thank you so much for coming in. We came in and we started talking and just hitting it off. And you've had an amazing career in boxing. And just some of the people you worked under, studied the game and learned about. And now currently everything that you're doing with all the fighters that you're training right now. And you had an amazing last year, with all the big wins, including Hector Garcia. It's just amazing to see. And so I'm just excited that you're here. And we're just going to chat it up and continue on. But I know this weekend you got Adames fighting. And I'm excited for that one. He's just somebody I've been following for a long time, and he's right there for like another big fight right after this as well. And I know they always say, never look for the next fight, one fight at a time, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Take one fight at a time. And obviously, Julian Williams has been a unified champion. So J-Rock, he's one hell of a fighter, and we're expecting a tremendous fight, but we expect to be victorious, and hopefully we'll catch in with that Charlo fight or something of that nature. If not, we'll go up to 68, maybe fight Caleb Plant or Benavidez or somebody of that nature. And if you can beat one of those guys, obviously, you're right at the top of the food chain. You maybe possibly get a fight with Canelo Alvarez. So we'll see how that works out.
Yeah, there's a lot of options for him. And even just for the rest of your stable and everybody you're working with, like it's amazing to see. But let's just go back to when you first got into the game. Like you were telling me some of the guys that you've worked under, like some of these legendary coaches and trainers. It's like how did the sport get to you?
Well, some people may or may not know my backstory, but obviously my cousin fought in the 1956 Olympics, Louis Molina, and my family's always been very, very proud of that. And growing up, my father put us in various different sports: basketball, baseball, boxing, per se. And so I was just fortunate enough because of my cousin to, get a little foot in the door of the gym, and one thing led to another there in San Jose and some of the professional gyms, and being able to work under the tutelage of, Joe Goosen, and being around Ronnie Shields out there and some of his camps. And I was very fortunate to be under Emmanuel Stewart for a time with Jose Salaya, who obviously we had. And so I've worked with some really, really great trainers, got some great experience, and, being in the corners with Robert Guerrero, the Ghost, and Joel Casamayor, the gold medal winner, most outstanding fighter of the 1992 Olympics, and three-time world champion. So I've been very, very fortunate and blessed to be in and around some great, great coaches and tremendous fighters.
But what does that take, though? Does it, obviously in the game it's hard to really get familiar, get in with certain camps and people, but what does that take from like a trainer like yourself to really establish like those type of relationships, to really start at the base and then work your way up like that? What does that take?
Well, first and foremost, I've been very, very blessed, obviously. And then, the harder you work, people say the luckier you become. But a lot of it is blessings, obviously, that are out of your control. Mm-hmm. But when you do get in there, you got to work hard, work your tail off. And I think people take notice of that. And so being in and around Joe Goosen's gym and working your tail off, and then other opportunities come with other fighters. Hey, guy seems to know what he's doing. He works his ass off, and that's the type of guy we want in our camp. So there's no substitute for hard work, and as I'm sure here we are on this great podcast, and the work that you put in, and those are the things that take you to that next level.
So you grew up in San Jose?
Yep, San Bay Area.
Bay Area, okay, okay. And you said you tried to play other sports prior to all that? Or?
Well, no, you know, we did all the sports.
Did
growing
everything,
up.
yeah.
We did everything. You know, baseball, boxing, basketball. So you know, and I was fortunate, you know, to compete at a pretty good level and being around a lot of great athletes and things of that nature. But always gravitated towards boxing, you know, one-on-one combat, and there's just something about it. And I mean, me and you had talked about it previously to being on this podcast. There's just something about boxing, the fighters, and just the atmosphere. There's nothing like it. And when you're in a big fight, you know, and I've been to NBA games and professional football. I have a lot of friends that play pro football, you know, basketball, so on and so forth. But there's nothing like a big-time prize fight.
Yes,
I agree. The electricity, there's just nothing like it. And so that's what I gravitated towards, as obviously you have as yourself. And so it's just second to none to me.
Yeah. I mean, I love this sport so much. It's done a lot for me, and just understanding what the fighters go through. And like I said, it makes boys into men, and really, you know, it helps out some of the things. Some of these guys, they come from very humble beginnings and hard times, and kind of gets them out of there, and you know, and relieves some of that aggression they may have in the ring, and really, you know, I just love it so much, and I get so excited about it. And it's an honor to have you here, just because of everything you've done, and you know, being the trainer of the year. That's a big award and a big accomplishment for someone to get the credit, because you know you're in there just as much as the fighter, maybe even a little more, because you're thinking, you know, you're doing the studying, you're trying to figure out their opponent and helping with their style, because you know you don't want to change the fighter's style so much, right?
Sure.
But you want to adapt and make it better for them, so each fight, you know, they in their mind, they know they have things that they need to do. But that's a big accomplishment for someone like yourself. Like, without giving all the sauce, what makes a trainer of the year? You know, like how do you get like those type of accolades?
Well, you know, you leave that up to the media, the fans, and so forth. But you have to work with great people, and it starts with great fighters. Right, you want to add to them, you know, a little salt, a little avocado on the tacos, per se. But you know, I think what makes a great trainer to me is a coach that doesn't try to totally change the style, the DNA of the fighter. I think once you start trying to say it's my way, the highway, and to me, adaptability.
Yes.
And you know, it may be cliche, but it's true. It's adaptability. It's enhancing what is already there, and then working with great fighters and being blessed in that area. And then obviously to be blessed to have a lot of things go your way, because obviously we're in a sport, no matter how much you prepare, how well you're prepared, one mistake in 1 second, in one round, one punch. I mean, what makes boxing so great.
Yes.
In basketball, you know, you're up 30 points and there's 10 seconds on the clock. It's over.
Right.
And the same thing in football.
Correct.
And so forth. But the great thing about boxing, is we learned with Julio Cesar Chavez when he had that great fight with Maldrick Taylor. Here we are in the last couple of seconds. You could have lost every single round. And one big shot, boom, that's what keeps everybody on their seats, on edge and stuff like that. So you have to be fortunate that a lot of things went your way, and we were very fortunate this year that a lot of things went our way, and winning so many you know, world championships. And so a lot of it, again, is hard work, blessings of things to go the right way. And like you said, as a trainer, you have to do a lot of things that people don't see, where even the fighter, you want to leave no stone unturned. So when that fighter's getting rest, he's doing this, you're doing film study. You're finding out, hey, what run do we want to go on? I'm the type of coach that likes to be involved. You know, today's day and age, they have a lot of strength and conditioning coaches, so on and so forth.
Yes.
But I'm the type of coach, when I got into the sport, I want to know how you run. I want to be on the runs with you. I want to see what you're doing. Where are we going to run? And you're thinking about all these things to prepare him to be his absolute best. So those things, and they culminate, and here we are, trainer of the year. Thank the Lord.
Yeah, correct. And you know, when that fighter steps in the ring, he knows he's got that his best coach behind him because he was there through the whole camp, the whole time.
Yeah, the psychology of it is huge to know that, hey, this guy's got my back. He was there with me when I was doing the sit-ups. He was there with me on the runs and stuff like that. And I think that does go a long way. There's no two ways about that.
I love that. I love that. What's it like training Morrell? Like, he's a special fighter, and he's 8-0 now. They're moving him so fast. I mean, I know he's a huge talent. You know, it's just crazy to see the way he's fighting and just the way he's moving up so fast. But he's a one-of-a-kind talent.
You know, I was fortunate enough, Louis DeCubas Jr. Put me in contact with him and started working with him in Minnesota. And the guy's unbelievable. I tell people this all the time. If he wasn't a professional prize fighter, he'd be center field for the New York Yankees.
He's athletic like that, huh?
I mean, he'd be a safety for the Cowboys or the 49ers or so forth. And I think Ronnie Shields has done a tremendous job with the experience in his last couple fights with him. And I've been fortunate to be around Ronnie for a long time. Obviously, we worked with Arizlan and Lara together for many years, and was able to watch Ronnie with the Charlos and things of that nature. So now that he's under the complete tutelage of Ronnie Shields out there in Houston, I think sky's the limit, and just very fortunate to be a part of his team and thankful to be a part of that, because I think sky's the limit. I think he's the next coming of a Roy Jones. I mean, he's a phenomenal athlete.
He's fun to watch, and even fun on social media. He's always dancing and goofing off, but right when he gets in the ring, it's game time.
Oh, it's all business.
Yeah, it's all business. It's all business. Yeah, it's cool to see. And you got like a lot of great fighters in your stable. Like anyone that comes to mind that we can maybe get some shine on that's coming up. Any prospects you have?
You know, I like the Perot brothers, obviously, the two heavyweights I got. I call them, you know, the Cuban Klitschkos, right? Both Olympians. One brother was an Olympian in 2016. The other brother was an Olympian in 2020. Obviously, he made the Olympic team in Cuba as a heavyweight at 19 years old. And we all know that with, heavyweights, that's a fairly young age for a heavyweight division, especially in Cuba. And so I really like them. I like how they're coming along. We had that huge win on Showtime with him. Now he's top 5 in the world, and hopefully one of them will become the first Cuban heavyweight champ of the world, and we can make history with that too, along with, getting Trainer of the Year this year. It would be a huge feather in my cap to take the first Cuban ever to a heavyweight championship of the world. It would be huge, and I'm excited about the opportunity and working with them and seeing what may transpire moving down the line here.
The heavyweight division is just it's different right now. It's a little weird because Tyson Fury's not fighting, and Usyk is trying to get the big fight with Tyson, and then there's Andy Ruiz, he hasn't fought, and same with Deontay. So it's like wide open right now. So for them to come in, it's a perfect time, because the heavyweight division is always one of my favorites, because it's always like big punches, big knockdowns, big fights, and like that's what it's missing right now. Like we haven't had a really good heavyweight championship fight since, I don't know, Usyk Joshua maybe, but like it's just it hasn't happened right now. I'm just so surprised.
Yeah, I wish Tyson Fury would get back in the ring. He's one of my favorite guys to watch. And Deontay Wilder, obviously, with his knockout power and the tremendous puncher he is. And we need these guys back in the ring, and sooner rather than later, and more often than not.
Yes.
So, I like you said, I hope it happens. And hopefully we can get one of these types of fights, like I said, with Lanier Perot moving down the future, and so we'll see what happens.
Yeah. What keeps you going in this game right now? Like what is like your biggest factor in like why this is something you're gonna keep doing? Till I don't know, maybe you might not retire. Or this might go to the end. Like.
Well, the sport of boxing has given so much to me and my family. I'm indebted to the sport. Yeah. But I love the sport, not just what it's done for me financially and what I've seen it do for other fighters to change their lives financially and allow them to put their kids through college and acquire generational wealth and things of that nature, and just change the entire dynamic of their families. So that being said, though, I love being around the athletes. I love being around these guys. I love not only just, guiding them in the sport itself, but I try to be a mentor to them, because it's bigger than just the sport of boxing, right? Because, as you change these guys' lives and help them go through, a lot of these guys come to you as adolescents. Robert Girl was 14 years old, and help them become men and shape their lives. And to see him still married to the same girl he was when he was in high school, and what he's done for his kids. I take a lot of gratitude in that, just not what we've accomplished together in the ring, but I see what the relationships that we have outside the ring, right? So to me, I think that's a huge factor. I'm a huge believer in Christ. I think we have much more to do than just the sport itself, what we can bring to the table and changing their lives. And so just being around the guys every day in the gym and just the feedback that you get, there's nothing like it. There's just nothing like it. And I go to work every day. I don't even want to say it's work.
Yeah.
I haven't worked. To me, it's not even a job. It's a passion, and it's just enjoyable. And I've been so fortunate to be a part of this sport and be a part of these guys' lives, so I'm just thankful for that.
Amen. What's your family like? You were talking about your son. He's been helping with some of your social media and amplifying, but how are they with as part of your team and everything they do for you?
It's been great to have my kids with me, obviously, and I never expected them to go in with what I did, but they took a lot of keen interest into that.
Yeah.
And so I'm thankful for that. And getting back to my son, he says, Dad, you got to have an Instagram and this. And I says, well, I don't know about social media. I'm old school. And he says, Dad, you were trainer of the year. You got to have some kind of Instagram or social media. And so obviously we moved forward in that direction and created an Instagram account and those types of things. I guess we moved into the next generation, and I kind of got a little window into that sphere itself by being out there with Jake Paul in Puerto Rico and being around him.
What was that like?
It was interesting. It was really interesting. But it opened my eyes to what social media can do, right? So it's very important, that you can use social media for a good tool to change people's lives,
Correct.
To uplift people, to inspire people.
Yeah. And
the guy is really a savant when it comes to social media and marketing and things of that nature.
Yeah.
And you look what he's done, but the guy works hard. I was out there in camp with him, and guy works hard, really wants to be great. He really can't punch. When people say that, the guy really can't punch, and he puts a lot of effort into that. I'm looking forward to his fight with Nate Diaz.
Nate Diaz, yeah.
And I learned a few tricks of the trade from him about social media, and I think he learned a couple tricks of the trade inside the ring from me.
I'm sure he did. I'm sure it was probably a big moment for him to really learn fine tune. But I mean, he really has taken the time to become a boxer and really put the work in and the time in, and he's brought some great people around him to really understand it and really elevate his game too.
Yeah, the guy really does work hard. It's not just he's a YouTuber and this and that. The guy is dedicated. He works hard. Almost every waking moment when I was with him at the house, he had the chef, the cook. Boom, this is what we're having for breakfast. This is the protein. This is what we're having for lunch. I mean, everything was on schedule. Boom, here's the workout here. This is how many rounds we're doing in the gym. We got after it.
Right.
Then he had the strength and conditioning coach come in at the nighttime. And so it's basically for him, it's 24/7.
Yeah.
Focused on boxing. And a lot of people would think it was the opposite. He's just worried about YouTube, he's worried about Instagram. That's not the case. The guy's fully focused into boxing. At least that's what I seen when I was there with him in Puerto Rico.
I agree. I think so too. And he's just doing it his own way, and that's you can't fault him for that, the way he's getting these fights. And for some of these fighters, it is about making the money too. So you can't fault him for it because of his platform. He just did it the way he did it, and that's what's going on. But yeah, you can learn a lot from that because social media is the way, and this is how these fighters are going to get these big fights now too, is also the social media exposure and the reach. And even we were talking about with sponsorships, it's these guys got to really put themselves out there. They need to learn how to speak properly and really how to bring themselves to that next level when it comes to their boxing, because a lot of these guys can fight, but what else can you do outside the ring too, you know?
Yeah, everything goes hand in hand. You know, the fans, obviously, without the fans, you're nothing. You know, the media plays a role. The fans play a role. Your performance, what you put into it, you know, blood, sweat, and tears, the road work and those types of things to give the fans what they want to see. So everything goes hand in hand. And obviously, you're seeing now with the social media, I think what's been so great about that is, you know, in print media back in the day, I guess I'm a dinosaur, right? I grew up with newspapers and so forth and print media. I'm very thankful for social media in this aspect, because with print media, you had a lot of journalists and things of that nature. I'm not going to say names, but kind of snub their nose. Hey, we're above reproach. We're above boxing. Maybe that's a lower class sport. Whatever which way they looked at
I know
it.
what you're saying.
You know,
I get what you're saying.
I don't want to put words in people's mouth, but that's the feeling that I would get sometimes. Way back in the day when we would have some of our fighters and say, hey, you know, hey, this guy's a world champion. He's from, you know, LA or whatever the case may be. And you guys haven't done any articles on this guy in the newspaper. And here's this guy doing, you know, tremendous things. And they're like, they kind of snub their nose.
Right.
And now social media has been, in a way, able to circumvent that.
Correct.
And now you see with some of these guys with their Instagram following, with the YouTube following, and some of these types of things. And now these print media people are kind of taking notice. Hey, guess there is a demand for that. If you give people what they want to see, you give them action, you give them top-notch performances, guess what? They'll put in. The pay-per-views proved that out with Gervonta Davis. They proved that out in a lot of different various ways with the numbers and the eyeballs and things of that nature. So we've been very, very, you know, fortunate for our sport, more so than probably any other sport, with the social media. Because, you know, in the NBA, you have a commissioner, in pro football and pro baseball, and they can kind of clean up things and do things and maneuver with these newspaper and print and so forth. And you never really had that with boxing because it's a worldwide sport.
Correct.
The commission in Argentina is different than in Chile, than in Africa, than it is, you know, in Japan. So they kind of snub their nose at it, to be honest with you. And so moving forward, it's been great with the social media because you can circumvent that now. You see what Jake Paul's doing. You see what these guys, Gervonta Davis and these guys. And so it's been great, and it's getting the sport back up to where it needs to be. Because at one time, it was the greatest sport in the United States of America with Joe Louis and Henry Armstrong and all these type great guys. So now moving forward, I think we're working our way back in that direction, and it's fortunate.
You've worked with a lot of great fighters, but I don't want to put you on the spot, but what was probably the most memorable night or victory that you've had with any of your fighters, even going back to even being, you know, under someone's tutelage? You know, what was like the most memorable night you've ever had in boxing?
You know, it's funny you ask that question, because I've never actually thought about that.
Yeah, I mean, I've been to like a lot of fights, and I've seen a lot of great victories, and it's been so electric, you know. But you've been in the game for so long. There's probably been so many amazing times, right?
We've had, I've been fortunate to be on the side of a lot of tremendous victories, and a lot of great fights. And, you know, obviously winning some of your first world championships, that was memorable. But, you know, I'd have to say, in a strange fate or so forth, a fight that we weren't victorious in, but kind of culminated everything for me in the sense that, you know, as a kid, you have some people that say, hey, man, you can be anything you want to be, right? You got those positive people around you, and hey, son, you anything you put your mind to, you can do. And then that said, we live in the real world, right? Everybody's not going to be positive. There's going to be teachers or people, and nobody's perfect. We don't know what they're going through on that day, that may say, hey, you know what, you're never going to amount to anything.
Yeah.
And we've all had both sides of that. And anybody that says that that's not the case is lying.
Right.
So, you know, where you have had people say you're not going to amount to anything. And I think in a bittersweet way, it was probably the Robert Guerrero-Mayweather fight. We weren't victorious in the fight, and so it was bittersweet not to win. But to get to that level, the apex, when I started in this sport in amateur fights and 4-round fights and doing the club shows,
that's
and
more of a dream, right?
Yeah, so we didn't win, so in a bittersweet way, but it is the apex.
Yeah.
You're fighting Floyd Mayweather, arguably one of the greatest fighters ever.
Correct.
And to be on that stage, right? So we weren't victorious. So to me, it's funny you said that, because that's the first time that I've ever really thought about it. I guess that would have to be the apex for me. It wasn't a win, right? But to get to that level,
to see everything,
to get to that
fight
level,
week, everything,
get to that level
Yeah.
from where we came from. Robert
Yes.
Girl from Gilroy,
Right.
a small
Garlic
yeah,
city.
small little town. And me from San Jose, where a lot of people, this guy's never going to amount to anything. And for us to get to the apex, we weren't victorious in the sense that we didn't beat Floyd Mayweather, but we were victorious in the sense that, hey, guys that were expected to do nothing to get to that level, I'd have to say that was the pinnacle for me.
How do you get a fighter who just lost back on his feet to get him back, like level-headed and knowing he could still fight in the game? How do you switch his mindset?
That's tough, because everybody's different, right? So you look at a case of like a Prince Ahmed. I'm kind of the outside guy, looking in. But you look at Prince Ahmed after that fight with Marco Antonio Barrera. To me, it seemed like he never recovered. Right? So when all things were going great, I mean, this guy was amazing. So you have some guys like that when they take their first loss, they're never the same.
Right.
And then you have other guys that are different. Obviously, you look at Bernard Hopkins, lost his first pro fight, and Juan Manuel Marquez, and they take a loss and they just take it to that next level.
Right.
So I think it comes down to the person. Everybody's different.
Yes.
And the way they look at it. Are they going to be a pessimist or going to be an optimist? And for me, of course, I'm going to try to tell them, hey, man, let's look at the positive side of things, because that's the way I innately am as a coach, and should be. That, hey, this is just a setback. We can get to this next level. There's still more to accomplish. There's things you could do. But ultimately it comes down to the person.
Yes.
Right? So it all just comes down to the person and what they're willing to go through. And so I've been on both sides of it, where a guy loses a fight and he's just never the same. And I've been on the point where a guy loses a fight and he says, this ain't going to happen to me again.
And then it works even harder.
And takes it to that next level. So I've seen it from both aspects.
Boxing's an interesting sport when it comes to losing. You could be an undefeated fighter and get that one loss, and it seems like it kind of, I wouldn't say hinders their career, but it's always a setback. Like it seems like the undefeated fighters get a little more recognition,
Yeah, the old saying, right? The old timers used to say, don't tell me your record, tell me who you fought.
Yeah.
Right? So, and when you fought them, and
true.
how you fought.
That's very true.
And people got to look at boxing. Boxing is a lot like professional baseball in the sense that, you have club fights. It's like single A, double A, triple A. You move to the major leagues.
Yep.
So a lot of times I like to look at guys and tell the casual fan, look at boxing a little bit like baseball. So the guy maybe only batted 200 or 300 in single A. That doesn't mean he can't be a 300 hitter in the major leagues. We don't know how things are going to play out. So when you look at a guy's record, and I'm taking it back to an Orlando Salido who had a bunch of losses, or Freddie Pendleton, or I was very fortunate to be in Livingstone Bramble's corner, if you can imagine that, a 15-round fighter who had beat Boom Boom Mancini back in the day. So, and he had quite a few losses. But, that being said, if people could look at it and say, hey, guy maybe lost in a 4-round or 6-round as he was developing, but look at the guy in his apex. Don't just look at his record. What was he at his peak?
Yes.
And appreciate that. And I think the other thing that boxing fans got to do, don't be so harsh on guys because they had 1 or 2 losses, because then what happens is these guys don't want to lose their undefeated record. Then they're less likely to get the types of fights that you guys want to see. So when a guy loses 1 or 2 fights, rally around the guy. Don't look at it where he has to be undefeated to be a great fighter.
Agreed.
And that's the biggest problem that I see in the sport of boxing. If we could change one dynamic that I do like and admire about, the UFC and MMA, those guys have 2, 3, 4 losses.
Yep.
And guess what? I'm still going to support Conor McGregor.
Correct.
And that's what we got to do in the sport of boxing. And if we do that, now that our sport has went from here to here, and guess what, fans? All those great fights you want to see, you're going to see them more often than not.
Yeah, I would say probably this year has probably been a lot better for boxing, you know, with the Tank Garcia, the Benavidez plant.
Sure.
I mean, we got Spence and Crawford. Like,
coming up, that's right. That's right.
That is huge. I even look, in a way, Fulton, like, you know.
And we may have Morrell and Benavidez.
Yeah, Morrell, Benavidez.
I think that's coming down the pike, too.
Yeah, so it... Yeah, I mean,
but win, lose, or draw, we got to support these guys, and that's how we're. You know, the fans are always saying it. No knock to the fans. We love you guys. There's no two ways about that. Without you, we're nothing. But let's also remember, get behind these guys. Not only when they're undefeated. Get behind these guys if they take one or two losses. Go out there, support these guys. Yeah, and we're going to have all the fights that you guys want to see. No two ways about it.
Spencer Crawford, who you got?
Wow, you're putting me on the spot. I
know I do this every time. You know, people. I'll tell you this. I'll give you mine. I don't have one. I could see it go both ways just because of who they are. I like Crawford a lot just because I've always been a big fan of him. But I mean, Spence is no joke, and you know it's tough. This is one where I'm probably not going to put money on either.
Yeah, don't put your money. Don't go one way or the other on that. But you know. Wow. You know, obviously, you know, I work with Carlos Adames, middleweight champ of the world. And you guys can go out there and look on YouTube and see some of the sparring sessions Carlos Adames had with Crawford, right? So Crawford is a tremendous fighter. He could do a lot of different things in the ring, obviously. We all know that. Yeah. Now, the thing about Spence, he's physically gifted. He's a physical specimen. Yes. He's a big guy. I'll tell you, after that car wreck, you know, I thought his career was over. Yeah. Right? So for him to do what he's done after that car wreck, all blessings to the Lord above that he's even still here with us. You know, I thought for sure, you know, he's not going to be the same. There's no way he's going to be the same. And then he goes out and beats Danny Garcia. Yep. And then he goes out and he dominates Ugas. Yes. Right? So it's like, wow, you know, you're definitely proving me wrong. So there must be an inner desire and strength in him that we just don't know about for him to go through everything that he's done. So, boy,
it's a tough one.
Wow, you know, like I said, you know, like I said, Crawford can do a lot of different things. Right. He can do a lot of different things. Wow.
We'll leave it at that. Yeah. It's tough. It's tough to make that call because, like, they're both amazing fighters, and I'm just happy it's happening. Like, this is a huge fight for all boxing fans to watch and see and to really appreciate because they're, you know, we're getting the fights that we want to see.
And kudos to Al Heyman for putting that together.
Yeah, and I know I'm sure it wasn't easy for the negotiations on both sides and to make it happen. And I'm sure both fighters, obviously, to respect to both of them, they deserve everything that they've put in for the sport. But there's got to be some type of give on both sides.
No, there's
got to be. Happen.
Yeah, there's obviously a give and take, and in this case, they're probably going to have to give a little bit more than take because when you have guys at the apex, you know, and the egos and this and your entourage and everybody that's involved to make those types of fights happen is not easy. So we got to take our hat off to both of them to come together and make this happen. So I'm sure both of them had to make some huge sacrifices for this to come off with the fans. That's why I tell the fans out there, come on, guys, you guys got to be out there when we want these kind of fights. If obviously it's not a draw per se, and chances are it's not going to be, somebody's O has got to go. Yep. And support both of them in a loss or a win. You got to support these guys, and that's how we're going to get these types of tremendous fights.
Because they gave us what we wanted to see.
That's
finally,
right. That's
and we
right.
have to respect it and support it. And I completely agree. Like I'm super excited about it, and it's been a great year so far. And I know we still got 6 more months of boxing left in the year, so who knows what's going to happen. I am hoping for a big heavyweight fight to come up too. So I'm hoping Deontay gets back. I'm hoping Tyson gets back, not against each other because we've seen that 3 times already. But
and what how tremendous was that?
Yeah, I mean,
those fights were just.
That was some of the best. That was some of the best heavyweight. Like that trilogy was incredible.
No two ways about it.
Yeah, yeah. And I sometimes go back on YouTube and watch it just because, that very first fight, Tyson was boxing the whole time, but then Deontay gets that, I think it was like the 11th or 10th round knockdown, and it was like. I don't know how Tyson got up from that just to see, like, he came up like the Undertaker.
Well, I was right there. I was ringside, so I think it's over. Good night. It's over.
He gets up.
And let me take my popcorn. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
And he gets up. What?
Yes.
And to the point, to the fans again, you think about these guys putting their lives on the line.
For our entertainment.
For the things that they do, the competitiveness and what you're watching, competitive greatness. And it's one-on-one. That's what makes it so great, right?
Yes.
It's not, the point guard didn't do this and the center didn't do that and the pulling guard didn't pull this way, didn't block this way, or we could have did this. No, it's one-on-one. There's no excuse.
Is there anything, so in a fight, one of your fighters, maybe he's losing the rounds, has there been a point or a moment where you have said something that has maybe changed the trajectory of the fight that's got him maybe a little more motivated and they got the win? One of my favorite things about watching is, in between rounds, listening to the coaches talk to their fighters and really, giving them pointers and tips. And sometimes it's just a motivational speech. Like, I love that. Top Rank's been going to commercials lately, so I'm like, we're missing out on that. But like, that's my favorite part because you're really seeing them, that connection, that bond. And sometimes, like I said, it's just a motivational speech to really like, get them back in the fight. And then, I've seen some of these guys just come back and do tremendous victories,
Well, it reminds me of a time, obviously, I worked with Joe Goosen
yes.
for quite a while down there in Van Nuys. And I was very fortunate to work with Joel Casamayor. And I was very in a strange twist of fates. You had Joe Goosen, and he was a mentor to me, obviously. And he had Joel Casamore. We had Joel Casamore, and we did the first fight with Chico Corrales.
Yeah.
And we beat him. And to show you what a difference a great coach can make, the very next fight, Joe became the head trainer of Corrales, and he beat Casamayor.
Yes.
So you had, a change in the coaches. And that brings me to my next point. When Corrales was fighting Castillo, and all that transpired, and I'll never forget, and Joe told him, he says, I'm not going to go into explicits out there. You may be some kids that are listening to the podcast, but he basically, you better get in his ass now.
I remember that. I've seen that clip.
That's right.
Yes.
And it changed the entire tide.
That's all he had to say.
And it changed the entire tide of the fight. It's one of the greatest fights ever. And obviously, Corrales was able to come back after the knockdowns and all the things that he went through and win the fight. But I haven't had something as dramatic as that. But yes, there's been times in fights where I've had guys where it's like, hey, look, man, it's all or nothing now.
Yes.
And we've been able to turn the tide. I just had one of the fights with Lanier Perot with the big Ukrainian, the two undefeated heavyweights, and on Showtime. And I basically told him, I says, hey, man, we got to get the stoppage. We got to get out there. You got to get in his effing ass now.
Yeah.
And we were able to come up with a stoppage. So a lot of times, those types of things that you can trigger guys, knowing your fighter. And that's why it's so important to me as a coach. No knock to the strength and conditioning coaches, but when I came into the sport, people say, oh, Bob's done strength conditioning, he's done. When I came into the sport, there was no such thing as a strength conditioning coach. A coach was a coach.
Coach was a coach.
You had to do everything.
Yeah.
Right? So for me, I want to be involved in the runs. I want to be involved in those things because then I know how far I can push you. I know more or less what your personality is, not just inside the gym, outside the gym.
Yes.
And you have a better indicator of what buttons to push
yes.
to take it to that next level.
Yes.
And I think that's been one of the big keys to my success.
I love that. Yeah, I guess sometimes you just have to just let them know, like, hey, it's now or never, right? You're losing the fight. You got to do something to show up and show out, right?
Teddy Atlas, huh? We're Tim Bradley. We're firemen. We light the fire, Tim.
That's it. And I guess that's what makes a great coach is just putting it out there and just letting them know, like, this is it. This is it. That's what. I remember that clip so well because that's one of the Corrales fight was like one of the best fights out there.
Well, it's got to be. It's got to be in the top 5,
I
if
agree.
not the greatest time that a coach ever said something to change. We all obviously know Angelo Dundee when he looked at Sugar Ray Leonard with Tommy Hearns and he said, "You're blowing it, kid. You're blowing it, kid." And he goes out there and did what he did and got the victory. And Joe Goosen, obviously.
Yeah.
So it's definitely in the top 5, if not the greatest time that a coach ever, gave some instruction or advice or motivation that changed the tide of a fight. No two ways about it.
That's so cool. Yeah, I remember that clip so well. And I just he goes out and wins. And so, that fight was so bloody and it was so gruesome. And, there's still been, I feel like boxing, it's changed a little in that aspect, especially with some of, the stoppages refs have been doing. I know we're protecting the fighters a lot more, which is great. But sometimes do you ever feel like maybe a fighter could come back without having, I don't know how I'm saying this. It's just, I've seen fights back in the day be a little more gruesome and like a comeback like that, right? Corrales got knocked down.
And today, that fight probably would never take place.
Right. It would have probably been stopped early, right?
It would have been probably stopped after the second knockdown.
Yeah.
And, of course, the fighter's health is first and foremost.
Yes.
But, this is just me and you talking inside ball game.
Yeah.
Not for everybody out there in the podcast, the political correct stuff.
Yeah.
These fighters, I'm probably going to take a lot of backlash from this and things of that nature, and probably shouldn't say it, but it is what it is. A lot of these, Robert Guerrero, for instance.
Yes.
Bob, if you ever stop one of my fights, I'll never speak to you again. So these fighters know what they sign up for.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, to the core, yes, it's our job as a coach to look at the big picture, to put their health first and foremost.
Yes.
But understand, that's why you fans have to get behind these fighters, because a lot of them are willing to die in that ring for our entertainment.
Yep.
For their ability to be great and the pride and their culture and their country and their family, whatever their motivation is, whether it's a family member, whether it's they're fighting for their kids, their wife, or whatever it is, they know what they sign up for. And a lot of them, Bob, don't you ever stop a fight.
Right.
We seen what happened with Corrales when he fought Mayweather, and his father stopped the fight. He never had the father in the corner again.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a fine line, because, yes, we are responsible to protect them, to stop the fight when we know, because we do have their lives in our hands. But understand, a lot of these fighters, when no one's around and it's just me and them, we're doing film study or we're having dinner, nobody's there, and they look at me, or Robert Guerrero, and says, "Bob, I just want you to know something. I have the utmost respect for you. I look at you as a family member.
Yes.
If you ever stop one of my fights for whatever the reason is, whatever you see, I'll never speak to you again."
Yeah, that's tough.
So he's letting you know,
right?
Just don't stop that fight. I'd rather go out on my shield. I'd rather die. And we hear Teddy Atlas talk about this a lot, and that's the truth. That's what a lot of this is. And sometimes some of these referees, I see where they're coming from, because if they stop the fight too soon, what are you doing? If they don't stop the fight, the guy ends up in a coma. How could you do this? You're heartless. So it's a fine line to walk, and everybody has to make a decision, a split-second decision. Not easy to say the least.
Yeah, and I don't think it'll ever get easy in this sport. It's always going to be like this. It's either, these guys put it all on the line, and they do want to go down on their shield, and they want to be prideful, because even if they do lose, they at least know they gave it their all, and it wasn't. They went out on their own.
And the flip side of that is too, we can look at the case where a guy ends up in a coma, unfortunately, or ends up quadriplegic, or he ends up dead. The other flip side to this is, though, and I think referees need to take hold of this. You don't want to take heat.
Yeah.
But this guy's been training since he's 5, 6 years old to put himself in a position to be great.
Yeah.
To become a world champion, to change his family's, financial outlook for the rest of their life. And I think a lot of times some of these referees, if they're going to err on the side of caution, I think they do need to let some of these fights go a little bit longer than they think.
Yeah.
Because this guy has trained, put everything in his life to this moment. And for you just to take that all away from him, and a lot of times, let's be honest, these referees are like, man, I don't want to take any heat. Oh, what is he doing? He should have stopped it sooner.
Yeah.
But you got to think about this man and everything that he's put on, and especially, when it's 4 and 6 round fights, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
8 round fights, I get it. When we're in that 12-round championship level fight, elite guys that have got to this level, work so hard, I think you got to err on the side of caution. And to me, you need to err on the side of caution of letting him have the opportunity to be great.
Yeah, I agree.
And when you stop that, you take that away. And 9 times out of 10, you're right. Maybe he is probably going to get knocked out.
Yeah.
But at least let it come to fruition where he knows, guess what? They didn't stop it early. What if? What could have been? What? No, I was knocked out. I was stopped. They dropped me 3 times. The fight's over. There was no getting up. I couldn't get up. I tried to get up. It's done.
It's done.
But give him the opportunity to get up. Give him the opportunity to continue on the fight, especially at that level.
Yeah, I agree. It's not like that big of a deal, but like the Rolly Romero fight, the way I was stopped kind of early.
There's no doubt in my mind with that fight. I think the referee Tony Weeks, no disrespect.
But
to him.
he did the Corrals fight, didn't he? Wasn't he? I think he was the ref for that fight.
So again, we're in a day and age. That's what I'm saying, where they're thinking, and I really believe the guy's age and the way he looked played a factor into what and why he did what he did. I don't know. I haven't talked to him.
But like you said, it's his only. That was probably his only shot for a championship fight, probably in his career.
And again, that's why I like to let things come to fruition.
Yes.
And we got to be very careful that we allow people that are outside the sport, that don't care about the sport, that don't care about the fighters. Because the people that speak the loudest, like, oh, this guy's in a coma, this is an outrage.
Yeah.
You're probably the same person that never really spent $1 on boxing.
Yeah.
You're probably the same person that never laced up a glove. You're probably the same person that wants boxing to be abolished altogether.
Yes.
But you'll be the loudest guy on the keyboard.
Yep.
And you'll be the loudest guy to get this and that, in print media. But you're the guy that never went into the gym. You're the guy that this sport has never changed your life. You're the guy that never had to grow up in the mud like most of us in the slums to get to where we are at.
Yep.
And from your ivory tower, you're saying, oh, this, that, and the other thing. And you're taking this one instance. But what about the Floyd Mayweathers that have changed their family's life?
Yep.
What about all these different guys and things that have changed the dynamic and generational wealth for their families, or the guy that's just the average guy that this sport kept him out of prison, kept him out of jail, kept them off the streets, kept them, disciplined and those types of things. You're not looking at any of that. You're going to go right to this. And so I think we got to be very, very careful, because it's the guy that screams the loudest. That's what happened in boxing in the 60s. People forget. In our great sport, people look at baseball, basketball, and football in college. Guess what? There used to be college boxing.
Yeah.
Bill Walsh, who was the great coach for the 49ers, was the boxing coach where I'm from at San Jose State.
Oh,
and
wow.
used to have scholarships
I didn't
back
know that,
then.
yeah.
Yeah, and they got it abolished by the guy who's yelling the most, who really doesn't like boxing anyway. So we got to be very careful.
That would be cool. College boxing. That would be.
That's
amazing.
the way it used to be. Yeah,
because I know the
University.
the Olympics, and even the Olympics are having issues with boxing right now. It'd be amazing to see. That would actually be awesome. School versus.
Well, that's
school.
the way it used to be, and unfortunately, a guy died in the ring. And they did everything they could with a lot of these people that, yelling from we should abolish this and that. And it's always those people that have never put any time into the sport, don't really know anything about the sport, don't know anything about the lives that have been changed in the sport. They see one thing, and they're the loudest, And unfortunately, sometimes those are the people that get the most change, and that's what happens to a Tony Weeks, probably, in my opinion.
For sure.
I'm going to take all this heat from these people, and unfortunately, a guy like Barbosa, it was probably going to be his only chance. And realistically, he was on his way to winning that fight, and would have became a world
knockdown.
champion.
He was fighting pretty well,
but unfortunately, he may never get that shot again.
Yeah, that is unfortunate, man.
And even if he does get that shot, the chances of him, winning, what are they?
Yeah.
We don't know.
It could be the same thing, just because of his age and the way he looks and stuff. Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah, man, college boxing would be. I didn't even know that. Like, I've always been a fan, but that would be so cool if they brought that back. That would change a lot of lives. And it's just taking away opportunities from people that, especially in this sport, they don't have that many. And so you go in the gym and you step in the gym, and this is like, I'm home. Like, that's the feeling that a lot of these young fighters get. And it's the opportunity they have to actually become something.
Yeah, and like I said, we got to be very careful on our sport, the sport that we love, that we allow people to determine and sway public opinion when they've never stepped inside of a ring. They've never understood a family dynamic like my family and how much pride we had to have a family member. I can only imagine, obviously I wasn't born at the time, but my mother of Puerto Rican descent, and to have her cousin representing the United States of America in the Olympics, and the pride that they would have in that, and that I know she had in that, and how it changed his life and opportunities. And we're allowing some of these people that don't understand that dynamic, yet we'll allow people like that, per se, we all like to have the roofs on top of our houses. We don't like the rain to come in when we're asleep at night. But guess what? There's a roofer that fell off the roof and died. Oh, but that's just the consequences of life. These are things that have to happen.
Correct.
Well, these are changing these people's lives too, but they don't look at it that way.
I agree.
They only see what they want to see. And unfortunately, a lot of times, those are the people that change the public opinion, where now it reverberates to the referees, to the judges, to the commission, to the sanctioning bodies. Oh boy, we got to do this, we got to do this, and we got to do this, and we got to do that, and we got to be careful.
I agree, and I think that's important. That's why guys like you, you're out here speaking more about it, because we do need to show more of the good than the very little bad that comes with the sport. It is a dangerous sport, and it's very aggressive. There's so much good to it. There's so many opportunities for these guys and women that come into this sport, and it changes them, and it changes their family, it changes their coaches, their trainers, everything. And that's what we need to show. We need to show the good in boxing.
That's right. We all like the electricity that's going on right here in this thing, and the electricity that we're able to use so we can talk through these microphones and that. But there's an electrician who's going to die.
Yeah, it happens.
He's going to be one. But guess what? We don't want to take that livelihood away from them.
Yes.
We're very fortunate, to come in, turn a light on, or have the refrigerator or these types of things. And they're fortunate that they're able to work in the industry to provide a living for their family. And that's what a lot of these outsiders have to understand with the sport of boxing. Not just in professional prize fighting, but when you do those kind of things and you get everybody so, oh my God, yes, we understand it's a dangerous sport. Yes, we understand what we're involved in. But when you try to outlaw something, when you try to change something so much, then little kids that can get directed in areas that they need to go to be successful, get disciplined. Not everybody's going to be a professional prize fighter. Not everybody's going to be a world champion.
Right.
But we do need young men, young women to have discipline. And sometimes this is the great sport for them to be in the amateurs, have discipline, and those types of things, and where their parents can, little rambunctious kid, you could put them in these areas. And those are the things that we need to do to help society be better. So we got to be careful, like I said, and this and that, and it worries me, and take away those opportunities from those kids and the heroes that they look up to. So like I said, I'd like the sport to get back to what it was. Obviously, it's my responsibility where I see my fighter, if he's taking too much damage, to stop the fight. And if I see that, I will.
Right.
But I'm also not going to take the opportunity away from him, where if I know my fighter I'm with him every day. I know what he's capable of. And I know, hey, he can turn this fight around. He can come back and do this. We don't want to take those opportunities away from those guys.
And to the casual fan, go put some gloves on and just go to your local gym and hit the bag for a little bit. 30 minutes on the bag. Tell me how you feel after. I bet you're going to feel 20 times better than you did. Have the worst day, go hit the bag for a little bit and let that aggression out. You're going to feel it's the best workout ever.
There's no two ways about it.
What's next for you?
Well, obviously, we got Carlos Adames coming up this Saturday, defending his middleweight championship of the world. And after that, I'm going to have Mini Pac-Man. He'll be defending his world championship August 4th. I have Nestor Bravo be fighting on the zone August 26th, and he'll probably be in an eliminator fight. Puerto Rican Olympian and getting ready to make his way to a world championship. So we got a plethora of guys getting ready to do some great things and be looking for us, for sure, be looking for us.
The rest of the year is very busy for you with everyone you're working with.
No two ways about it.
Where can everyone find you on social media?
You know what? You can go to at Bob Santos Boxing.
Yep.
And
everyone go follow right now. He's getting his social media up right now. Trainer of the year. Everybody knows who you are in the sport of boxing. Very knowledgeable. This was awesome. It was a pleasure, and I'm so glad you came in, and I appreciate your time. I know you're a busy man. I know you're getting ready. You're taking off to Minnesota on Wednesday. So
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
yeah, I'm excited. Bob Santos, everybody, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you.